Hey everybody. For those I don't know, I'm Stephanie May. I've been coming to this conference since about 2012, I would say. I'm a cartographer. I've spent the last a lot of years, 10 plus years, building global base maps, building render assets for global base maps, building teams of people that build global base maps. Within this community, I've always felt a little bit downstream, I think for that reason, because that's a lot of what I'm doing is downstream, and a little bit peripheral. So this was an exciting project for me. This one reason why I undertook this mapping of the Muddy Branch Trail in Montgomery County, Maryland, is I wanted to do something that was a little bit more full cycle with using OSM. And the other reason is that the other reason why I wanted to take on this project is because I've recently been pretty interested in thinking about how to scale down all the various projects that we're working on that are, both within OSM and peripheral to it, like the entry, the starter pack, the entry level kinds of examples that we can show people who might want to use this ecosystem of tools, because right now I feel like it's a little bit missing and it can be quite daunting to someone who doesn't have a background in all the things that you need to know in order to do this stuff. I'll tell you a little bit more. I'll get into the nitty-gritty of Muddy Branch Trail, but just to say thank you. Just to say a little bit more about my driving question. I wrote this before I came here. Can we make OpenStreetMap self-sustaining by making it relevant to people in our lives and communities? And what I mean to get at, what I'm trying to get at with that really is that I really like to map, like, these questions like, what do you like to map? And everyone says telephone poles. I really like to map stuff that someone else would like to see. So here's an example of Madrona Woods near where I live in Seattle. And one little project that I did was I found this map that somebody put in the hand-drawn map that someone in the neighborhood put in the info board. The trails were really effed up in OpenStreetMap, so I walked them all with my low-key GPS device and fixed the geometries, but I also gave them the names that appeared on this map. And that really felt like the right level to me of curation and the right level, because there was some community reinforcement and it felt good to do something someone else might value. So that's a lot of where I'm coming from. And really, I think, like, overall, my commentary, that's where I'm coming from when I say this about OpenStreetMap. Like, I think this project has reached a point where it's not enough to just be like, hey, we're all just going to put stuff on the map. Let's just keep putting stuff in here. Everybody put your stuff in here. It can't just be about mapping stuff. It also has to be connecting with each other, but also connecting with the world outside of OSM, making it relevant to the world outside of OSM. I think we've reached that, right? If you introduce someone new to OSM and they go to edit the map, there's not a green field. There's, in a lot of the places where we are, a lot of the places that are relevant to people, there's a ton of other stuff there already. So that challenge, I think, becomes manifold in multiple directions. Anyway, end soapbox. All right, so this project specifically came about because I met Jeanette Rosenbaum at a climate networking event, and she said, can you help me with our maps? And I really appreciated kind of the level of sophistication with which her enthusiasm for maps and the way in which she was thinking about this. And this is specifically from their website, and really kind of like how this group feels about their watershed, which is between Gaithersburg and the Potomac River. And all the things that the deep understanding they have about the spatial relationship, and what that watershed represents for the community, and all the things that they want to unite in the process of mapping this trail. They want to have a community connected to preserving the area's intrinsic beauty, and they want to do it through mapping cool. Like, I'm sold. The problem that she wanted me to help her with was not that they didn't have enough map, it's that they had too much map. You can follow this QR code right now and see the current maps on the Muddy Branch Alliance's website. They have, it's a WordPress site. They have 8 embedded Google Map instances with KMLs just shit stuck all over it. Sorry, it just came out. And just like all kinds of like pop-ups with photos in it, and like very detailed descriptions of like all the 6 different parts of the Muddy Branch Trail and like every turn and everything. And this was not serving them well, because if you just Google Muddy Branch Trail, the watershed's idea about what this trail was, it didn't match Wikipedia. didn't match all trail, it didn't match anyone else's definition of what this trail was. So their communication about what this trail was and what it represented was not effective, even though they had done a tremendous amount of work and put a lot of love and care into it. And furthermore, when I asked, they said, well, our favorite map on this page is the 9th map at the bottom, which a 9th grader drew several years ago. So how can we capture this spirit of curation, this loving spirit of curation, rather than all of these Google embeds? And of course, how can we use OpenStreetMap as the place where we store like every nuanced details that matters, rather than a bunch of KMLs in a WordPress plugin? So it wasn't a super hard sell. And as a matter of fact, when I took a look in OpenStreetMap, the trail data existed and it matched. Someone, I think, did go to the effort of those KMLs did match what was in OpenStreetMap. So someone went to this effort. But in terms of the curation beyond that, okay, we have a horse, a mountain bike relation that captures some of it, and then we have a horse relation that captures another part of it. There just isn't a lot of consistency, and nothing in the way that it's represented really reflects, again, what this Muddy Branch Alliance is wanting to communicate and convey about why this watershed and this trail that they maintain is important to them. And furthermore, I mean, my commentary on this is, and this I think is true a lot of especially urban recreational trails, the things you see tagged in there really represent the trail users, not the stewardship goals per se. Like, this is very common in OSM. So the first part of my project with Muddy Branch was to go in and see, like, how do we curate this data further? I spent some time in the Trails Bird of a Feather talking about some of the nitty-gritty of this, but high level for you all, the biggest part of it was the trail was just is a collection of ways. Some of them are roads, some of them are paths. It goes under bridges. There are bridges included, and there's different stewardship for different sections of it. Parts of it are operated by the city of Gaithersburg. Parts of it are private Isaac Walton land, and parts of it are county land. So we ended up using a route relation to kind of unify all of it, and then we ended up putting everything else that Muddy Branch like really felt was intrinsic to the trail, and that was like really important, that they knew their visitors needed to know in order to use this trail, into that relation. You know, which raises some questions about whether what type of relation this really is, which I think are very valid. But what that did was it created something that I could then, that Jeanette, she couldn't be here today because she's running her annual meeting for the Muddy Branch Alliance. And she's talking up to them, hey, we now have a relation in OSM that we need to go and maintain. So that's what that does. It kind of gives them a place to focus their energies within the OSM world. Okay, now stepping back to the website for the Muddy Branch Alliance. We talked a bit about I showed you a bit about what it is right now, but what are really the requirements that it has right now? Well, it needs to connect locals to the watershed and trail. It needs to kind of match the organization, which is, you know, match kind of their aesthetic and their ethos and their ideals. And it needs to work with WordPress. So you see, this is what I built up here in the top left, and I'll talk a bit more about that quickly. But I tried to really capture a bit within it, and you can again go to the QR code and see it live and working, just to capture a bit more of the aesthetic of this hand-drawn map that they liked the best. And I built all this in, my thought process, my thought experiments in building all this was to just use all open source, like to whatever extent I could, open source tools, and to make it all fits in one GitHub repo, and it's simple as this. This is the structure of it. I made my own icons down here for the things that were important. There's a couple choices. In a few cases, it's actually only 4 icons, I think, yeah. But just proof of concept, this is all still possible. Like the tile mail days can be here again, but it's complicated and it's not well documented. But you can, in fact, extract, you know, the area of OpenStreetMap that you're interested in, get some other sources for your reference layers, put it all together with your fonts, your icons, and your sprites, contain and serve it all from a GitHub repo, which you can then put into a WordPress website. Here's just a few more details of the map that I built itself, just emphasizing it's distilled down really to, what in my discussions with the Muddy Branch Alliance are important to their trail users. They wanted to see trailheads. They wanted to see places where you have to walk through the stream. And they wanted to see parking. So that's what we're showing. They wanted to see the watershed boundary. There's still, anyway, we won't dwell on the things that I'm still wanting to change about this, but. And as I mentioned, this was all built from free and mostly open source tools. So they're listed all here, all the things that I used to build this. I've talked to a few folks out there, but I would love to, expand this into some sort of module for students or some other sorts of teaching materials. Assuming this resonates with folks as being something that's useful overall, that would allow for more folks who want to know how to build a map for their community group or how to draw more people in or how to learn for themselves, how MapLibre and PM tiles and overpass queries can all fit together in a workflow. Also, shout out if you want to get involved, if you're local Montgomery County and an OSM maintainer, would love some help there. I do have a tiny bit of fear that I'll build this thing and walk away and no one will ever extract the data again. So it'd be great to have some locals there. And as I said, if there's anyone who's interested in doing something like this or taking this kind of project, humble little project forward and making it accessible to more people, please do come talk to me after. I don't think there's too much time for questions, but come ask me after. I've listed some themes. And thank you all so much for listening.